Hello folks, welcome to another part in this hybrid zombie shooter tutorial series. In today's series, we're going to take a look at how to decouple our spawn zone from the manager. Right now, the manager is controlling all the spawn functionality and the zone itself is just there as the spawn location. But we want to remove the spawn function from the manager and actually make it zone specific so we can have additional parameters on the zone. This is going to be a pretty straightforward tutorial. And thank you again for stopping by. If you haven't already, hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if this content is helping you. Thank you again for your time. Now let's get into the video. We're going to take this spawn zoning system one level up. We're just going to make it a little bit more sophisticated. Not too crazy. We're not going to add any crazy functions, but we just want to add a little bit more modularity to this system. Right now, our system depends on the spawn manager to spawn in the zombies, and this spawn zone only acts as a spawn area. It does not control what happens within the area. It only controls as to where the area starts and stops. So let's go ahead and modify that. So we're going to go ahead and use an enumeration to add a little bit more modularity to this. So we're going to right click here and then search for a enumeration. And this enumeration would be e_spawn type. Open this up and add in an enumerator, and this is going to be instant. And a second enumerator, which is going to be triggered. And press save, and then we can close this. Now open up your BP spawn zone and add that enumerator as a variable. So add your variable in, and this would be our spawn_type. And this would be our e_spawn type enumerator. Let's make this instance editable and also expose on spawn. Compile and save. The default value for this spawn zone, we're going to just leave it at instant for now. But because we have made it instance editable and expose on spawn, we can change this directly from our editor or from any other blueprint as we wish. Let's go to the spawn manager, and now comes the tedious or like the intricate part. What we are doing is we're using the spawn manager to do all of these spawn functions and everything, and it works if it is like a simple game, and if you want to keep it very simple and straightforward, this is good. But if you want to start expanding into different type of spawn systems, then you have to decouple, like basically remove the spawn function from the spawn manager and have these spawn zones take control of the spawning. And the spawn manager will still determine what's going to be the spawn maximum spawn count and for the zone and stuff. And then also we could have an override function to disable that, so you can specify what would be the maximum spawn count by spawn zone. Let me show you how that is done. First, we're going to go ahead and delete our spawn zombie timer function. Now the spawn interval is something that we will be using, but the rest of the functions, we don't need it. So we can go ahead and delete that out and then go ahead and compile and save it. Off of our event begin play, we're going to go ahead and take a look at all the spawn zones that is present in the game. To do that, we're going to get all actors of class, and this would be our spawn zone class. And off of the out actors, we're going to do a for each loop. And the array element is basically the spawn zone itself. So using the array element, you can get any of the variables or any of the functions from within this class. So if I drag off of this array element and look for get spawn type, at the very bottom, I should get the get spawn type variable, which is basically this variable right here. And we're going to do a switch here. Drag off of this and let's do a switch and connect this to the loop body. And we now get two options. What should the game do if the spawn type is set to instant? And what should the game do if the spawn type is set to triggered? We're going to take care of the instant now, and then we're going to come back for the triggered after. So if it is instant, then we want to just go ahead and start spawning the zombies. So in our spawn zone, let's start setting up the functionality for it. We're going to create a new function, and this would be handle_spawns. And inside of this handle spawn, we're going to now call in the timer function. So set timer by function name. And the function name is going to be spawn zombies. We're going to create that function in just a moment. And the time function, we're going to go ahead and drag it and connect it to this handle spawns. So it becomes a variable. We can also rename this as our spawn delay timer. And we're going to set this to looping. Now we're going to migrate the spawn zombies function from this blueprint from our spawn manager to our spawn zone. And to do that, it's pretty straightforward. You right click on it, copy it, go to the spawn zone, just click anywhere within the graph, and then you're going to press Control and V for Victor. And it's going to paste it, and it's also going to be like, hey, the get random location and set random rotation, these functions doesn't exist. What would you like to do? And we're just going to say do nothing, and then we're going to click on confirm. This is going to give our spawn zombie function directly from our spawn manager, that it's going to just paste it as an individual function here. But obviously it's going to have its own problems, which we're going to fix. Now from our spawn manager, we need to bring the random location and the random rotation, both of these functions one by one, over to our spawn zone. So we're going to go ahead and copy this by right-clicking and copy. And in our spawn zone, I'm just going to click anywhere on the graph and press Control V. That will paste it. Same thing for the random rotation. I'm going to go ahead and copy and then press Control V, and this will paste it as well. Before you press compile, we're going to need to fix some of these functions to make it local. Just open up your get random location from box. Right now, it's looking for the actor class BP zone. We're already within that actor class. So instead of looking for the actor class and getting the spawn zone, we can just drag the spawn zone in here and then just connect it here just like this. And then delete the actor class and also this target here. And connect this random location directly to the return node. So that will fix this function. Now, if you go to the spawn zombies function, you still have the random location box with an error. So you just need to right click on it and then refresh the node, and that will fix your connection. Same thing for your rotation. You just need to right click and refresh it. That'll fix your connection. Now for the current zombie count, we can just right click on this, and then we can create a variable called current zombie count. And same thing for the max spawn count. Right click, create a variable max spawn count. Now, if you go ahead and compile, you should not have any issues or errors, and we have successfully transferred the spawn function into the spawn zone itself. Now, we're going to go to our spawn manager. We're going to drag off of our array element, and we're going to set the max spawn count, and then set this to our number that we have set up in the spawn manager, and connect this here directly. And then again, we're going to drag off of this array element and call in our handle spawns function, which is going to require a spawn delay timer. We're going to drag in our spawn interval time, and we're going to plug it in here just like this. Let me quickly clean this up. Now what we have essentially done is on event begin play, the manager is going to take a look at all of the spawn zones that are in the game. And for each of the zones that is in the game, if the spawn type is set to instant, then it's going to set the max spawn count, and then it's going to start handling the spawns, which is basically going to go ahead and spawn in the zombie based on the spawn delay timer. And the spawn zombie function hasn't changed. It's the exact same function as what we have set up the previous time. And we're setting up the interval time directly from the spawn manager. So now if I go ahead and select our spawn manager, we still have our interval time and spawn count set to our normal number. If I press play, you'll see the zombie is going to start spawning in within the box. And the advantage of splitting or decoupling this function directly from our manager is that, let's say you want this exact same spawn zone somewhere else. So you can actually select this spawn zone now, hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, and then you can just drag in any direction. I'm just going to drag it here. It's going to duplicate this zone for me. It is same as copying and pasting the zone inside of your level. Nothing has changed. It has not created a new blueprint or anything like that. It just created a child of this spawn zone. And you have your regular spawn zone and then also your spawn zone 2, which is only present inside of the level. Now, if I press play, you'll notice both of these zones are getting the zombie spawn in individually. That means both zones are controlling their own spawns. If you were to keep the spawn zone function inside of your manager, you wouldn't be able to do this because there's a loop inside of our function. So this is why we had to decouple. So we have an additional type of spawning system here. And this spawn zone has the exact same function as the original spawn zone. It also has the spawn type set to instant, and it's instance editable, so we can change it from the editor. If I were to change this to triggered, and if I press play, you'll notice there'll be no zombies because the manager function is only running on instant. If you want to add more customizations to this, you can go to your spawn zone and then create a variable named manager underscore override and set this to a Boolean. Make this instance editable and expose on spawn. And then also let's make sure that this max spawn count is set to instance editable expose on spawn. We can use this manager override Boolean, which is basically a yes or no or true or false Boolean, to decouple even further, to separate ourselves from the spawn manager even further. So it gives you more customization. So what I would do here is in our handle spawns, I will add in a new input, and this would be our max spawn count. And let's make this a integer variable. And inside of our spawn manager, instead of directly setting the max spawn count, I would just connect this to our handle spawns. If I move this out of the way, you should see that max spawn count actually set here. And I can actually connect this directly here and connect this to instant. And in our spawn zone, I would drag in our manager override, and we're going to do a branch. And we're going to connect this branch here to the handle spawns. We're going to do a quick setup before we proceed with calling in the function. If the manager override is true, then we're going to proceed with calling in the function just as it is. That means whatever the spawn count that you set up in your level editor is going to take precedent. So for example, I can set this to 35. And if the manager override is set to true, that means it's going to spawn in 35 zombies. If the manager override is false, then we're going to set our max spawn count here, just like this, and then connect this to false, and then we're going to call in the timer function. So let me show you what this manager override does. If we go into our third-person map, first we're going to select our spawn manager. We're going to set the maximum spawn count to just 5, just for this testing purposes. We're going to select our first spawn zone. We're going to make sure the spawn type is instant, and the max spawn count, we're going to leave it at 35, and the manager override, we're going to leave it at false. That means it's not going to override the manager. And the second zone, we're going to set this to instant spawn type. We're going to spawn in 35 zombies, but the manager override, we're going to set this to true. Now, if I press play, you'll notice in spawn 1, it's only going to have 5 zombies, and spawn 2 is now going to have that 35 zombies that we mentioned. So this is the benefit of decoupling the spawn function from your manager and having the zones control the spawn, while the manager controls it from a different level, and you having the option to override the manager. Same thing for the spawn delay timer. You can drag off of the spawn delay timer, promote this to a variable, and so it will create a variable within the game just like this. And we can just move this out of the way really quickly. And off of false, we're going to go ahead and set just like this and make sure this is instance editable and expose on spawn. And the spawn manager is sending in our spawn interval time at 0.005, and then drag in our spawn delay timer, do a get, and then connect this to our time here. So if the manager override is true, then it's going to take this delay timer. If the manager override is false, then it's going to get the spawn delay timer from here and set it first before the function starts. So if I compile here, again, we're going to do the same test. Select our manager, and our spawn interval is set to 0.3. We're going to make this like 3 seconds and then make it 10 zombies so we can see them spawning in. And select your second spawn zone and set this spawn delay timer to 0.1. And when you press play, you'll see that those zombies are spawning in every 0.1 second. And on the other side where the manager is controlling it, every 3 seconds, you have a zombie spawning in. All right, folks, so now that we have decoupled the spawn function from our spawn manager to our spawn zone, this is going to open the door for us to have multiple different types of spawn functionality in our game. In our next video, we're going to take a look at how to utilize this spawn zone with a trigger function or a collision function, so the zombie spawns in when the player enters the collision area. If this video had helped you in any way, please hit that like button and also consider subscribing to the channel, as we have more and more videos of this type coming up soon. Thank you again for stopping by. I'll catch you all in the next one.